the First Minister who had that first referendum in 2014. You didn't quite get it. What are your feelings right now?
Well, I mean, what we said in the Alpha Party was that going to the UK Supreme Court was a fool's errand. It's the wrong court with the wrong question. Basically, there'll be a lot of celebration among unionists in Scotland today, but they'll be very short-sighted, because the lesson of history is you can't deny people self-determination. You can delay it, but you can't deny it. And one way or another, Scotland will assert itself as a nation and gain the independence which so many people want.
How does Nicola Sturgeon proceed from here? I mean, there's been plenty of friction between her and whichever Prime Minister has been in power over the past couple of years in the UK.
Well, she hasn't played her cards well. I mean, you know, there was a much more powerful Prime Minister. David Cameron was much more powerful than the present Prime Minister, or any one of the three we've had in the last few months in London. So therefore, you really have to, I mean, she says she's going to take time to think about it. Well, there's two things you've got to do. One is you've got to mobilise Scottish opinion, and you've got to try and be a bit more open-handed than she's been in terms of embracing the whole of the national movement, particularly parties like Alpha and the Greens who supported independence. And secondly, you have to put a viable route forward. Now, she suggested she's going to a general election. Well, there's two questions then. One, if you go to a general election on a party political ticket, then instead of fighting it on the issue of independence, you'll end up fighting it on your record in government, the health service, or whatever. So there has to be a better way to fight it. We fight it under a Scotland United banner. Grouping all the independence parties together might be one option. And secondly, you've got to say, what do you do if you win a majority? I mean, the Scottish national movement has been distinguished in Europe and history as being a totally peaceful constitutional movement. That's one of the great distinguishing features of those who argue for Scottish independence. But you have to find a way in that peaceful constitutional way to actually get the result that people vote for. Now, that brings you into the realm of mobilising popular action, of lobbying internationally, of interventions in the UK Parliament to make sure that you don't sit back and accept the denial of democracy. And of course, our friends internationally, many of whom regard Scotland very highly, are going to be an important role in that. I want people internationally to say, look, if Scotland peacefully, constitutionally, as a nation asks for independence, then that's a great example to the rest of the world, and that should be granted and followed, not treated with disdain, as the London Supreme Court did today.
Sorry to interrupt you, Alex. Are you surprised that at the moment the opinion polls in Scotland in terms of independence seem to suggest very much a 50-50 split? And I'm saying, are you surprised? Because I'm thinking about the Brexit and the United Kingdom leaving the European Union. In terms of Scottish voters, during that Brexit referendum, Scotland voted to remain. So are you surprised that more people in Scotland, not being in the EU, are not thinking, actually, if we're independent, we could rejoin the bloc?
Yeah, well, you have to remember, of course, historically, support for independence was much lower. I mean, indeed, when I called the first independence referendum, support for independence was at 30%. It increased very rapidly during the campaign. And I'm sure that would happen again, because particularly in current circumstances with the UK in economic crisis, you know, being a gas-rich country, you know, producing 5 times as much gas as we consume, and having renewable energy, clean, green, cheap energy coming out of our ears in Scotland, that's a very strong proposition for an independent country. But sometimes you have to get into a campaign in order to increase support, and that's one of the calculations that the national movement must have. Now, one thing's for absolute sure: this issue isn't going away. You cannot have so many people in Scotland wanting independence and not have a democratic opportunity for them to express that vote. And of course, one thing that the London politicians and London courts don't fully appreciate is if you ask people in Scotland, not do you want independence, but if you ask them, look, does Scotland have the right to vote for independence as a nation, then the number of people supporting that proposition wouldn't be 50%. It would be 80 or 90%. Because even people who don't believe in independence believe in Scotland's nationality. Mm-hmm. I mean, you recently beat us in a football match. You beat us 2-1. I thought deservedly, certainly. But I can absolutely assure you that whether Scots were were for or against independence, they were all cheering on Scotland in that football match because people believe that Scotland is a nation.
Yeah.
And I think a great thing for Europe generally, for democracy generally, if an example of a peaceful, constitutional, democratic national movement was successful, it would be an example to the rest of the world as to how to conduct yourself in a democratic arena.
Leader of the Alba Party, former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, thank you so much indeed for talking to us on TRT World.
A great pleasure. Thank you.